All managers are present except Manager Olson and Manager Shackleton. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the board on a matter that's not on the agenda? And on the agenda, let's delete item 6.3. The 325 Blake Road checking account has not turned up, so we'll have it at a subsequent meeting. Other than that, no changes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Manager Rogness. Is there a second?
Second.
Manager Shackleton. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam President, was that the regular agenda or the consent agenda?
That was a consent agenda? Oh, you're so right. I skipped a step. May I go back and say,
No,
is there a
too late.
motion to approve the agenda?
Hard played.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I haven't even had that much coffee. I don't know what my excuse is. Information items, we have the videos from the MCWD 50th anniversary year, Talia Mayak, and we'll be reading those on during the administrator's report. So now, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus 6.3?
So moved.
Is there a second? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for doing that twice. Under board updates, President's report, I had neglected to bring last time this gift that we got from Maud. It says, Minnehaha Creek Watershed District in recognition of 50 years of outstanding watershed management 2017. So let me pass this down the way for everyone to get a gander at. And there was a gift waiting for us here from Alaris. I don't know if we can accept it, but maybe staff can. So, or bank.
Must be less than $20.
I don't know, really. We'll give it to staff. Then there are just a few upcoming items on agendas I'll note. We have, my notes are somewhere. We'll be having an E-grade update probably in January, and we'll be adopting the comp plan, which is a wonderful thing, and we'll probably be receiving an offer for the right-of-way at Lake Road. So those are just a few of the items that will be coming up in future agendas. And then for Planning and Policy Committee report, may I turn to you, Manager Rogness, since you convened that this evening?
Yes, we had a very productive discussion on the integration of land use and water planning. And James was able to outline a process that they are initiating in the first 60 to 90 days of 18, and also had gave us some real insight into how useful this new approach to integrate the two, the land use and the water, are really going to be to the communities that we're serving. And he also presented, with the help of other of his staff, how that master land use and water master plans are going to really help a whole range of planning efforts that we have underway, whether they're rural, as in 6 Mile, more mature communities like Shorewood, and also looking at the more mature communities that are more urban, and how we really went from sort of spot projects throughout the watershed district to to really more comprehensively help plan with the cities that make up our watershed district. So I think it was a very useful conversation.
Thank you. Are there other meetings or events managers like to report on? Manager Shackleton?
Thanks. So yesterday, I sat down with our administrator and staff to talk about the IT plan that came before us, and it turns out that a lot of the questions that we'd asked were also been identified in a memo from staff to the administrator, and we had a really good conversation, kind of identifying a plan for engagement with staff to kind of develop a roadmap and engage with our board. We talked about bringing essentially structuring this a handful of engagements with the OPC committee to bring us all on board. And in my mind, it's akin to rebuilding a car. I don't know any of us necessarily know how to rebuild an engine, but we, if it's going to happen, we want to figure out what our payment plan is and why we're going to pay for things at different points. And I think the same is true for our IT plan. It's worth investing a handful of conversations and a handful of meetings to get a sense for why we had the list of expenditures in front of us at the last meeting, and how we should move forward in a way that makes financial sense, but also makes good sense for our organization. And so that's what we discussed yesterday. The intention is to bring back something into OPC, the planning committee, in January.
Thank you. Great. Anything else from managers? The upcoming meeting and event schedule is printed at 8.2 in the agenda. And we'll go to item 10 on the agenda, which is permit 17-181 for County State Aid Highway 112 Phase 2. Ms. Quinn, I'll let you get seated and then just say a word about process. So Ms. Quinn from permitting staff will make the presentation. Then we will allow any member of the public who wishes to speak to come to the microphone and give a name and address and speak for 3 minutes, and then we'll move the permit, and the board can have any question or discussion at that point. And I think you're here for this purpose? Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, President White, members of the board. This evening I'm presenting permit 17181 for the phase 2 reconstruction of CASA 112, which is also known as Wayzata Boulevard.
You know, I got my hearing aids on tonight, so I should have. Can you pull it closer or something?
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Got a beautiful voice, but it's kind of
All right, try it again. So CASA 112, also known as Wayzata Boulevard. This phase of the reconstruction is approximately Wolf Point Trail to Myrtlewood Road in the cities of Long Lake and Orono. So just a general outline, give you some general background about the project, go through the applicable rules, which would be erosion control, wetland protection, water body crossings and structures, and then I will be concluding talking about the proposed stormwater management and public comment, and then concluding finally with the staff recommendation. So just kind of orientate you where we are in the district. This portion is just south of Long Lake, which is generally highlighted in the yellow circle area there. To give you a bit of a bigger picture, so this is part of a 3-phase project. Phase 1 is shown in blue on this map, which is approximately Willow Drive to about Wolf Point Trail. That is currently under construction. MCWD did issue a permit for that last year, I want to say. It's a 16-179. The current phase that you'll be hearing about and reviewing today is highlighted in red. So that goes from about Wolf Point Trail down to Myrtlewood Road, which is about where Wayzata Boulevard, kind of the off-ramp onto Highway 12 is there. And then phase 3 is in the teal color to the west. That is currently planned approximately somewhere between 2019 and 2020. We haven't received a formal application about that However, there are pre-application meetings kind of for all phases of the project that date back to 2012, so before my time at the district. So zooming into kind of the phase 2 project area, I tried to kind of highlight where the loose line trail is there. Long Lake is just to the north, to kind of give you an idea of where we are. So the county, Hennepin County has applied for erosion control permit, including wetland protection and water body crossings and structures for the linear redevelopment of this portion of CSAH 112. The road redevelopment will include grading, paving, pedestrian and bicycle trail, curb and gutter landscaping, water main, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, culvert replacement, some water quality baffle sumps for pretreatment, and also a proposed stormwater pond. This particular phase of the project will disturb approximately 13 acres of land and create about 0.73 acres of new impervious surface. Of that new impervious surface, approximately 0.66 acres are associated with the bike and pedestrian trail, which is proposed to be 10 feet in width with a permeable buffer at least 5 feet in width on the down gradient. Per the district stormwater management rule, trails that are less than, or 12 feet or less in width that have a permeable buffer on the down gradient that's at least half the width, so at least 6 feet, are exempt from stormwater treatment. So when you take out the 0.66 acres of impervious associated with the trails, you result in 0.07 acres of new impervious surface, which is under the 10,000 square foot threshold to required stormwater management treatment. Therefore, the project is exempt from the district's stormwater management rule. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that up front because it's a little confusing, complicated, I should say. So this is just a layout. It's kind of hard to see the legend on this one, but what the proposed conditions are for this phase of the project. I can highlight what those colors are. So the yellow is paved roadway, kind of the oranges for the retaining wall. Kind of just a series of different, what the proposed project is for the reconstruction of the road. So then kind of going into what rules are triggered. So the erosion control plan is rather lengthy since this is I should back up for one moment, I'm sorry. I wanted to note as well that since this stretch of the project is about 1 mile in length, the district did follow the alternative public notice procedure, which is applicable for linear projects that are at least a half mile or greater in length. So a public notice was posted on our website, the Hennepin County page, project page website, and both the cities of Long Lake and Orono both have links to the project page on their websites. Additionally, notification was sent via email to members of the Long Lake Waters Association as they had requested, which then I believe they dispersed throughout the community as well. So then kind of going into erosion control, as provided in your packet, the erosion control plan is about 16 pages long, which is hard to display in a presentation format. So this is just one section of the road. I just wanted to highlight a very rough sketch outline where, like for this example, where silt fence is proposed in blue. The kind of dotted area is rapid stabilization methods. So overall, they have proposed to provide silt fence, sediment control log, inlet protection where needed, construction access stabilization, the location of concrete washout, and plans for final stabilization, including 6 inches of topsoil. Additionally, they've already been issued and received their MPDS construction permit from the MPCA for construction activities greater than 1 acre, and therefore their plan, as in the packet, does meet the district's erosion control rule. So there are 10 delineated wetlands within the project area. This phase of the project does propose permanent and temporary impacts to wetlands. Therefore, the Wetland Conservation Act process is applied, and the district's wetland protection rule is triggered. The watershed district is the local unit of government for administrating the Wetland Conservation Act in the cities of Long Lake and Orono. We did approve these wetland boundaries back in 2013. Delineations are valid for 5 years, so this is still active delineation. So this is kind of the the western stretch of the project, and then these are the wetlands kind of further down, so you can see the loose line trail there again. So kind of the more eastern stretch. As I mentioned, so proposed temporary and permanent wetland impacts. There's kind of the full exhibit was provided in the packet materials. This is just 2 examples, largely for culvert replacement in these 2. So the project proposes to temporarily impact 0.124 acres of wetlands for culvert replacement largely. They were confirmed to meet no loss criteria under the WACA utilities exemption, and a notice of decision was issued for that. The 0.345 acres of permanent wetland impact have been approved to be replaced through the Bowser Road Bank program. Road Bank program essentially is where the state provides replacement on the behalf of a local public road authority, so not MnDOT or the DNR, for impacts resulting from reconstruction of currently serviceable roads for safety standards. All 3 phases of the reconstruction of this project have been identified for meeting safety standard designs. So the permanent impacts have approval to be replaced through the state. As the wetland protection rule is triggered, the buffer provisions of the rule also apply. Attachment 10 in the packet shows kind of the extent of the full plan. This is just an example per the section 5E within the buffer provision. The required buffer width for linear projects is limited to the extent of the right-of-way. So the applicant has shown buffer width limited to the extent of the right-of-way. They have also provided a plan for buffer monumentation in conformance with the rule, and a restoration plan for the areas of buffer that will be disturbed through grading and for some of the culvert replacements as well. A full maintenance and monitoring plan will be addressed in the maintenance agreement, which is listed as a condition in the recommended approval. So therefore, the plan that as provided does meet the district's wetland protection rule. Water body crossings and structures, I tried to summarize this a little bit more clear for visual presentation. This is kind of just a quick breakdown of the culverts that are proposed to be replaced. And so kind of for the sake of walking through the presentation, I'm going to refer to the connection between wetland 19 and 14 as crossing 1. I'll have a figure showing the outfalls that are proposed in wetland 14C and in 13, and refer to them just as crossing 2. And then crossing 3, the connection of wetland 11 and 12. Kind of overall, so the district's water body crossings and structures rule is triggered essentially when any structures proposed to come in contact with the better bank of a water body. All of these are wetlands. They're not used for navigation purposes. And the culverts are, as I mentioned, are proposed to be replaced. They convey drainage only during rain events and do not contain or convey continuous flow. The demonstrated specific need for the culvert replacement is to maintain hydraulic capacity from existing to proposed conditions. The crossing 1, so the connection between 19 and 14, I'm just going to orientate you again where we are. So pretty much all of these crossings are gonna kind of be in this western, eastern portion of the stretch, starting kind of around about this area and coming down. To give you a reference point where we are again. So this is at crossing 1, so the connection between 14 and 19 is kind of highlighted in red here. This connection is changing from a 36-inch by 36 box culvert to a 42-inch reinforced concrete arc pipe. Therefore, we did require hydraulic analysis to ensure that there is no downstream or upstream effects to the high water level. They have provided that modeling and shown that they're either maintaining or reducing conditions from existing to proposed.
Can I ask how can that be? If you're going from a 36 to a 45?
Surface area ends up equaling out. This 36 inches smaller, square, you have more maximize the surface area if you've got a circular culvert that goes along with it. So 42 inches, so you have another 6 inches as far as the circle goes. So they're looking to equal out the surface area.
Thank you.
Surface area of the culvert
Yes.
touching water
Yes.
arc versus the box. Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And then this is kind of showing those outfalls into, we'll call them crossing 2, wetlands 14C and 13. This is areas of stormwater conveyance. It's not connecting like a water body to a water body. It's an upland connection to the wetland. And they are also being replaced in like and in kind, which means same pipe length, diameter, invert elevations, etc. Since they're not changing from existing to proposed conditions, we don't require hydraulic analysis because they're not changing anything, they're just replacing the structures. And then very similar for this connection as well, the connection between 11 and 12, we'll call it crossing 3, is a in-kind and in-like replacement as well. Kind of moving on to fulfill the rest of the requirements within the water body crossings rule, 2 alternative analyses were submitted, one being a no-build scenario, which does not meet the project goals. Second one would be proposing to relocate the culverts from their existing conditions. This was not seen as a more minimal impact solution, as it might require even greater wetland impact, cause even larger drainage issues from what's existing to the neighboring residents as well. Therefore, staff determined that the proposed culvert replacements do meet the minimal impact design criteria. And then finally, as listed in a condition of the recommended approval, the county and MCWD will execute a maintenance agreement for the outfall structures. And so therefore the water body crossings and structures rule is met. Can I take a moment here to just talk about what proposed stormwater management there is, even though it is not required per the district's regulation, and what the public comment that we did receive was. So kind of highlighted in teal boxes on this diagram, to the southeast is we'll call it Cemetery Pond, which is a dry pond that is proposed to be built within phase 1. Some of the drainage from this project, this phase of the project, will be directed there as well. And then a new wet detention pond, stormwater pond, kind of in the middle, is proposed at the corner of Old Long Lake Road and Wayzata Boulevard. Most of the community comment that we got was in regards to the location of this new stormwater pond, why it was being implemented if it wasn't required, what it was going to look like, tree removal associated with it, and also if there was a bigger opportunity for water quality improvement to Long Lake through this project. Staff met with residents back in September to kind of understand those concerns and gain more clarity. From that meeting, it was requested that that staff request the county of how they cited the pond, so an alternatives analysis, what the proposed tree removal would be, and kind of verifying the need for the pond, and then looking at the treatment that this pond is providing in a more sub-watershed context. And so to do that, this is kind of just showing, so the pond itself is going to capture kind of this area in dark blue here, largely providing rate control for the 210 and 100-year event. This is Summit Beach Park that the city of Orono owns. And there's a little wetland complex at the kind of end of it before Long Lake. There's a pretty heavily eroded ravine that goes through here. And this is a current depression that does have a broken pipe in it as well, and some severe erosion. We get staff on site to take a look at it. And I do know that the city of Orono verified a wetland delineation this growing season. I think they're in the kind of preliminary phases of planning some sort of restoration here to address the erosion. So this pond itself will also then help provide rate control to address that erosion that's going down that ravine. Additionally, it is proposed to reduce approximately 2.6 pounds of phosphorus per year and just under 1,500 pounds of suspended solids a year. So while the pond wouldn't meet the district's water quality and quantity standards, it does provide some benefit to the area. And as I mentioned, it is not required to meet our standards for the project. Furthermore, residents kind of asked us to look at greater opportunities and looking at the treatment kind of more in scope of the TMDL goals that are outlined for this area. And so we did do our own, we requested an alternatives analysis from the county. We reviewed that, and then while doing that exercise as well, we looked at if there was any other possible opportunities for greater water quality benefit to Long Lake. An alternative location was identified. However, the increase in water quality benefit or reduction in pollution was not significant, and staff is not advising or recommending to pursue that option based on the cost benefit analysis that was done. So then we met again with the residents just this last Monday, on December 18th, to kind of walk them through that a little bit more. And concluding that meeting, they really asked us to provide a little bit more clarity regarding the final site design and what it would look like in the area. So some communication was sent out to them actually just earlier this morning, kind of summarizing some more information for them. Essentially, this is a markup showing what the pond is proposed to look like. The area in dark blue would be the high water level, which will be approximately 3 feet deep at all times. The dashed blue line is the 100-year high water level. So in a 100-year rain event, the pond has potential to bounce approximately 7 feet and then would draw down within 12 to 48 hours. So this information was shared with them. The kind of area in green was just to relay to them that, you know, there's potential for landscaping below the 100-year high water level of the pond, since that would really just be kind of more of a bounce. And then we also contacted folks at the city and the county to gain a better understanding of what their landscape budget was and what the kind of final landscape plan for the area would look like. The city of Orono will be engaging with a consultant in the spring of 2018 and planning proposed implementation in the fall of 2019. Residents have kind of relayed communication back to city staff of Orono that they'd like to be involved in some sort of process in helping lead or add comment to how that design looks for the area. And that essentially concludes the community comments and staff's participation with that. So final Thoughts, staff recommendation of the permit application for erosion control, wetland protection, and water body crossings and structures with the conditions as listed in the report of an executed maintenance agreement for wetland buffers and water body crossings and structures, along with identification of the contractor responsible for maintaining the erosion control plan.
Thank you. Now, if there are members of the public who wish to speak, you certainly may come forward at this time. Microphone, yeah. And remember to start with your name and address.
Sure, John Savick, address is 780 North Brown Road, Orono. So I live adjacent to the Phase 1 portion of the property, and I came here to comment. I actually haven't been as involved in the Phase 2 piece, so I actually commend the staff in terms of how they've handled that in terms of the notification and the involvement in the community, and I think it's leading to a productive solution, so I won't comment on that, but I guess I'm here, much more around the Phase 1 process and to, voice my concerns and really my disappointment in terms of the watershed district's management of that process. And, when I woke up on October 11th and, looked at the lake and saw that a quarter of a mile of the shoreline had been strip cut in 24 hours with no notification and awareness that that was going to happen, I was a little bit disappointed. I've spent the last 2.5 months trying to understand how that process developed and was justified, and I guess again sharing concerns that the notification process, as I understand it, have been through, in exact contrast to what was done for Phase 2. The Phase 1 portion of it, there were a couple of notifications placed somewhere on city websites. There was no written request for this alternative procedure rule, so notification should have been mailed out as they were in Phase 2. So myself and a number of other nearby residents who are in adjacent properties to where the project is going on, weren't aware of this and certainly weren't prepared. And I know in meetings that I've gone to with the Long Lake City Council, the Orono City Council, and with other groups, there's a number of folks who are confused in terms of how this went through. So in understanding your notification process, I think it's quite clear that that was not followed in Phase 1 and led to a number of disappointed citizens. And I may be here crying over spilled milk at this point because the shoreline has been destroyed, but I think it's important for you to hear, and I think it's important for us to understand how you're going to, what actions you can take with respect to this area of real estate and future projects. So beyond the notifications, I guess what I've seen through this is kind of a complete disregard in terms of the DNR guidelines that a lot of us that live in the lakeshore area are quite familiar with. And even when staff, I think from the watershed district, appropriately pointed out concerns over hardcover and barriers being, or at least requesting from the county how those were being minimized. There were not adequate responses from the county on those. And I think if you look at everything, through the application, which I've gone through numerous times, there seems to be a clear desire, from the county to clear as much of the lakeshore as they could. And as alternative proposals were put forward in terms of whether there would be a path, where there would be a path. It seemed that it was a positive outcome if there were more trees cleared, which again, I'm flabbergasted in terms of how you can reconcile that with the DNR provisions.
Could you wrap up your comments, sir?
Yeah. So where we stand right now, we spent $17 million. The road is no wider. The lakeshore has been destroyed. As we go around and try and understand, who should we appeal to? City of Orono claims it's not in their jurisdiction. The City of Long Lake has chosen not to enforce their regulation. The DNR has transferred the responsibility to you, so that's why I'm coming to you asking for you to enforce the regulations that are in place, and to see that as future renewals come up, that the guidelines that are in place that, you know, you're entrusted to follow, that, that those are enforced. And again, I appreciate the responsiveness of the staff, and I don't know if it's that they're not empowered or they're not supported or where the breakdown is. But it's, you know, if you look at where we stand today, the people weren't noticed, and the end result is completely opposite of what the DNR would expect.
Thank you for your comments and your attention to this matter. Are there other members who would like to address the board? Out of order. Are there other members who'd like to address the board? Thank you. I'd like first to have a motion to approve the permit to get it before us. Is there a motion to approve permit 17-181?
So moved.
Thank you, Manager Rollins. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Manager Shackleton, thank you. Now, I know you had a question, Manager.
Yeah, we spent a fortune on Bushway Road, both in time and money with the county. Is it a different county that we're dealing with here, or what? You know, if I haven't seen this site, so I don't know. I just go by the description of the resident. But why do we have such a disparity between the two projects?
Let's find out what the facts are. Mr. Whisker?
President White, Manager Miller, managers, I don't know that I have command of the full facts this evening, so I don't want to speculate. I know that Mr. Stavik had some concerns about the notice process, and we can look into that and report back to the board. I do know that the project went through a pretty substantial municipal consent process, which involved a series of open houses co-led by the community and the county. Presumably, and we'll look into this, the project did follow, staff did follow our own notice requirements. That's standard fare for the permitting that we do. We can look at how the notice provisions were met and the full range of notice and community engagement that the county went through, and provide feedback on that. I do know that the reason that the shoreline had vegetation removal on that section along that blue section there where the lake intersects with the road was predominantly for build out of a trail. So on the north side of the road, they're putting in trail and rebuilding that side of the shoreline to support a trail. And that there is a revegetation plan. I don't have all the full details on what vegetation was removed and what quality that was. And so if you're interested in that, we can, I think, assemble some information, meet with Mr. Stavik, and report back to the board.
Thank you. Ms. Quinn or Ms. Sylvia, do you have any further information about that portion of Phase 1, which of course is not before us this evening? Then we'll wait for a report. Beg your pardon?
Is there somebody here from the county?
Is there someone here from the county?
Christy Mortar's here from the county, and she's project manager for Phase 2, and I believe is involved in previous work.
Yeah, and just to clarify, the reason for the removal of the trees along the lakeshore was for deterioration and erosion issues. It was not to build or support the trail. It was needed to reestablish the shoreline to make sure the road was not undermined, and really for the safety of the public as a whole.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right.
What kind of revegetation plan is there?
Well, the system there is a reinforced soil slope, so we're not able to reestablish trees on that, so it would just be a natural
Like a VRSS?
grassy area.
So grass or like VRSS or grass or?
Well, natural vegetation, it'd be a mixture of different.
Buckthorn, I mean.
No.
Well, I mean, what do you mean? Is there a plan to revegetate it?
Yes, it would be a natural seed mixture that would be on there.
Oh, okay. You're planting a natural, okay.
Sorry.
Not letting the nature take over, okay.
No,
I misunderstood.
buckthorn on
Okay.
there. There's a lot of buckthorn in the area.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Are we ready to vote?
Ma'am, could we just
Yes.
have your name again?
Christy Mortar with Hennepin County.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are any opposed? thank you. And we'll look for a report on that notice of information. Thank you.
Yep.
Will you share it with the resident?
We'll meet with Mr. Stavic, we'll assemble the facts, we'll go back through the permit file, look at the notice requirements, talk to the county, meet with Mr. Stavic, and then send the board an update.
Great, thank you.
Item 11.1, Resolution 17-074, adoption of the conservation easement stewardship policy. Ms. Schaufler.
President White, managers, before you tonight is seeking final action on the conservation easement stewardship policy. I can go through the presentation if we want. The only main change since last week was I was able to touch base with Manager Becker, and since he was absent at the last month's board meeting, and he suggested adding a third purpose to the policy, so that has been incorporated. So in your packet, the current policy, if you look at the very first paragraph, identifies 3 purposes. So we've added a third one, which is to foster a common understanding of the expected behaviors of a district and the fee owner of a property. The other revisions since the November 16th PPC meeting was we included a piece on communication with newly elected officials when the fee owner is a government agency. And then also, you'll note towards the end of the violation policy document in section 5, we've added characteristics of how to determine the severity of a violation, whether it's a minor or major violation. I can take with that, again, just seeking final action tonight, and I can take any questions.
Thank you. First, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Move approval.
Manager
Second.
Miller, second by Manager Becker. Questions?
Excuse me, it was Mr. Becker's request, so I think we should reverse the,
It's okay.
no, but I prefer it that way. I'll second his motion.
That's just fitting, right? Any other questions? Manager Becker.
I just want to say that this is a fine piece of work. It's definitive marching orders, and everybody knows where everybody else is, which I think is something that we've lacked. And this will improve our administration tremendously.
And I'll repeat what I said last meeting when you unfortunately couldn't be here, that we owe you a debt of thanks for suggesting this, and to our staff for putting together such a great policy.
I suggest all kinds of stuff, but I never. If it isn't the quality of suggestion, it is.
We just don't follow.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Item 11.2, Resolution 17077, authorization to contract for invasive vegetation management at Wasserman West. Ms. Damjančić.
Evening managers, tonight staff is seeking authorization to enter a contract for pre-construction vegetation management at the Wasserman West project site. The timing of the project construction allows staff to provide an early assessment of invasive species on site and do that in relation to concept plans as well as kind of long-term natural resources objectives for the city and the district as well. Staff will also understand the connection between early management and identifying good vegetation practices on site with the long-term resiliency of the project. So we feel we're in a good position to provide this management at this time. You're familiar with this site map kind of as a whole in the concept plan. This is zoomed in a little bit to show the management areas. We'll be doing the invasive species management over the next about 12 months. Invasive vegetation management will be focused on removal of buckthorn in the woodland areas that are kind of along the lake shore there, and then to the south of the project site, near the tree line there and north of those homes. The project area also includes outlets owned by the city of Victoria to the south there. And we also anticipate that the Wasserman project parcels will be transferred to the city during the term of this contract. So we've administratively executed a license agreement which allows the district to enter the property to work with our contractor at any time during the project timeline. The ideal timing for invasive species management of buckthorn as well as garlic mustard on site is this kind of winter or early spring time frame. So the project will actually start this winter and then continue into fall of next year. Minnesota Native Landscapes has actually submitted the lowest quote. We submitted our requested quotes from 5 different contractors, and Minnesota Native Landscapes came in low at $13,332. Staff requests authorization to enter into a contract with Minnesota Native Landscapes in the amount of $13,332 and establish a project maintenance budget in the not to exceed amount of $14,665. Any questions?
Is there a, thank you, I'm sorry, cut you off. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 17077? Manager Shekelton, is there a second?
Second.
Manager Rognus. Does anyone have questions for Ms. Domjancic? Manager Becker?
Who are the principals in the recommended firm?
Those are kind of the 5 that we typically work with. The principal owners of the company, is that what you were asking?
Yes.
Minnesota Native Landscapes is owned by, Joe Schaefer, thanks.
Thank you.
But yeah, these are the 5 contractors that we are typically contracting with for this type of work.
Any other questions? All those in favor, please say.
We have
Mr. Smith?
Just a question, and you may have covered this and I might have missed it, but are there adjacent city parcels that are going to be addressed in this vegetation management?
Correct, yes. So I can put these out on the map here. The city of Victoria owns an outlet kind of right here along the lake shore, as well as an outlet behind these houses here. So our vegetation management will kind of continue to where the future trail will connect to the existing city of Victoria trail here, as well as the split line here behind these houses.
Thank you.
So
Thanks for your
we're going to
question.
restore the city's areas too, under this contract?
Correct, yes, just because of the adjacency, makes sense to do all the management at once.
Those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Item 11.3, Resolution 17078, Victoria Comprehensive Plan Coordination Contract. Ms. Brown. Thank you.
Thank you, President White and managers. I am seeking authorization to enter into a contract with Hoisington Kogler Group to advance the coordination between the City of Victoria and the Watershed District on the city's 2040 comprehensive plan. I just distributed a letter of support that we received today from the Community Development Director at the City of Victoria in support of our work and involvement in that 2040 planning process. So I did provide a presentation to this effect in committee. In sort of summary, the work is really one of the first opportunities that the Watershed District has to proactively plan in a future growth area to make the land use planning process accommodate water and natural resources identified within our own comprehensive plan. This work will engage the city's land use consultant to sort of go beyond the scope of work within the 2040 within their comp plan scope, in order to really make sure that the priorities that the district has identified are showing up within their comprehensive plan. So it's a really unique opportunity to engage in land use proactively, rather than work where we typically do sort of through our regulatory lens. The work will be done sort of in 3 phases, and we are looking to marry up the timeline with the city's own comprehensive plan so that this work can actually be incorporated as sort of an addendum to the comprehensive plan. It'll be an accompanying document to their comprehensive plan. So the 3 phases of work as outlined in the scope are to first do a robust regulatory analysis looking at all of the potential conflicts and how those will impact the developability of this future growth area. Next, we'll look at sort of a regulatory solutions analysis where we'll particularly focus on opportunities for regional stormwater management, and then also looking at proactive programming around wetland mitigation where wetland impacts might be unavoidable. And then the final phase is developing what we're sort of calling a green print that can marry up with the city's park and open space plan, and we'll really look at the full suite of natural resource opportunities absent growth, and work to incorporate those opportunities into our own priorities in the area and then also into their land use plan. I did want to just call attention to a couple of notes within the letter of support that we received from the Community Development Director. He notes that this is an opportunity to clarify the feasibility of future development and make the future development out here more known and predictable to the benefit of both city and future developers. He notes the benefit to the city in being able to better anticipate landscape constraints, be able to identify regulatory barriers and solutions, and also understand natural resource enhancement opportunities. He notes that this has already really informed the greenway system that is part of their land use plan, and better informs them in their ability to link lakes, parks, and natural resources, and in particular fulfill their vision of their city as the city of lakes and parks. And then also notes that this is an opportunity to really set a regional example for this type of integration. So I'd be happy to answer any further questions about this coordination effort, and otherwise I am seeking authorization to enter into that contract.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 17078?
So moved.
Manager Loftus, is there a second? Manager Shackleton. Are there questions for Ms. Brown? I am always glad to have a new word added to my vocabulary. I had to look up green printing. Are we ready to vote? Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. And for some reason, some strange reason, you're sitting there still. Item 12.1, East Auburn Stormwater Pond Design. Ms. Brown again.
Yes, so I also have just an informational item in front of you tonight. I'm providing an update on the East Auburn stormwater ponds, or the Victoria Regional Stormwater Management, and the 90% design plan. So I'm just going to walk through sort of a refresher on the origin of the project, our involvement in the project, kind of walk through the way the system will work within the plans, and then be available to answer any questions. So this opportunity, these facilities really originated in 2003 when the City of Victoria constructed 2 stormwater ponds featured here, which were designed to treat 22 acres of, this is downtown Victoria here, so a majority of downtown Victoria drains into these 2 stormwater ponds before discharging into East Auburn over here. So these ponds were designed under our old stormwater rules. So when in 2011 we updated our rules, the ponds were no longer able to fully treat to our rules. So in sort of early 2016, the city came to us. They were anticipating several parcels of redevelopment that they knew couldn't really accommodate stormwater on site. And so they were looking for us to evaluate whether there was an opportunity to upgrade these facilities to meet our updated rules. So we engaged WANC to sort of develop a preliminary feasibility study of an update to these facilities. So this is the result of that analysis. We looked at adding filtration benches to both of these facilities, and doing so would enable this whole area in yellow, which was the existing drainage area as well, to treat to our rules for the full envisioned build out of downtown Victoria. and would remove about 25 pounds per year of phosphorus for downtown Victoria. And then the district was also particularly interested in this opportunity because we could also fold in additional treatment of Church Lake, which shows elevated phosphorus levels. And then again, the receiving water body at East Auburn is an impaired water body as well. So we saw an opportunity to engage with the city and provide some additional treatment to East Auburn. So we came to the board on October 27th of 2016, looking to approve an agreement between the district and city, whereby the City of Victoria would commit to design, construction, and permitting for these facilities. The agreement and the design that accompanied the agreement were approved as a regional stormwater plan, so development could continue within the time frame between approving this agreement and then the construction of the facilities. The agreement also anticipated Bowser grant funding. We had at that point applied for a clean water grant for these facilities. And the agreement essentially said, you know, if the district receives this funding, we'll act as a fiscal agent for the city. If we don't, the city is still obligated to proceed with design and construction. And then under this agreement as well, the city would perform all long-term O&M. So the city engaged Wank Associates to complete the design after the approval of this agreement. And staff here has also been engaged in reviewing plans leading up to this point. But I'm just going to walk through the 90% plans that we have now. And we are looking to issue comments on these plans so that Wank can prepare bid documents and we can move into bidding and construction. So the way that the facilities will work, you have water coming in from downtown Victoria into this first pond area. This area highlighted in yellow is the filtration bench. So water will move through the sand filter into a drain tile at the bottom of that first pond, so that sand filter will treat the water before it discharges then into the second facility. The second facility is also receiving that water from Church Lake and has two, oh my animation got weird. There are two benches, one to the east there and one in the southwest corner. So water is then going through both of those benches, moving through the tile system, which is that dotted arrow line, before discharging into East Auburn. So the next steps, again, we're going to be issuing comments and looking to bid for construction in January. Because this is the city's project, there's no formal action required from the board to move to bid, but I will provide another update to the board once that is prepared and ready to go out. And then again, they're looking to construct in summer. They're going to sort of keep the construction schedule somewhat fluid, just to make sure that we get the most competitive bids, but sometime within the summer window. And then again, development can proceed in the interim, provided that the city is following up on an accounting framework explaining how much of the regional facilities they're using.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Brown? Appreciate the Manager Loftus.
Did you find out about grants? Did you receive any or not?
Sorry, we did receive the grant.
Okay, thanks.
That was it was February last year that we found out.
And does it cover a good portion of the construction cost?
Yes, so I think the original cost came in a little higher than the grant, which will probably be accounted for just in the city's required match. but the city and WANC are going to work on identifying whether they would like to find cost savings or proceed as it's come in.
Manager Becker.
Would you describe what we do as fiscal agent?
Yes. So we are essentially dispersing the money to the city to complete the project. The way that we structured an MOU once we received the grant funds to sort of outline our role, and we basically carved out our role as providing oversight through the design process, then again through the construction. We did, in that MOU, fully indemnify the district, so we don't have most of our role in oversight is more informal, because I believe it was structured that way to better indemnify the district, having it be the city's project primarily. But we essentially are, again, dispersing funds and then conducting the grant reporting as well.
What do we require before we reimburse funds or disperse funds?
I don't recall how it's spelled out in the MOU. We haven't yet dispersed funds to the city. We will be reviewing their invoices and progress, but I don't recall exactly what was spelled out within the memorandum of understanding. I can come back to you with that answer.
Do we treat it as a reimbursable grant?
Yes, and it is a reimbursable grant.
Thank you.
What does that mean, reimbursable grant?
So we receive the money, and then, with the Bowser grant, we have received the first half of the money, and then we will, and then once we have spent that first half, that's when we would request more money. So with the city, we are reimbursing the costs as they're filed, rather than giving them money up front, I believe is.
So they have paid the invoices,
They have, yes.
and then we reimburse on a paid invoice.
Anything else? Well, thank you. We'll go to item 13.1, the administrator's report.
Thank you, President White and managers. First, I kind of wanted just to do a quick follow-up on an item I reported last week, was kind of conversations with John Jaski, the director of Bowser, and some communication he had with Representative Wagenius. I think as a follow-up to that, I had mentioned that I had talked to Mr. Jaski in advance, and then also he kind of provided some follow-up information. And I know that James provided an email to members, to the managers, I think earlier today, I think that was. Could have been yesterday, losing track of days here at this time of year. And also that referenced some proposed law changes that Representative Wagenius was going to forward, so I have some copies of those that I can provide to you just as kind of added context for that process. And like James mentioned in the email he provided, that's something we're obviously tracking very closely. And then I just have a kind of four updates on some things that are kind of milestone features of things, activities here at the Watershed District. One is that, and this is, you are all already aware of the RFQ that went up for 325 Blake Road on Monday afternoon. And ever since the district purchased that property in 2011, this is a significant project and kind of a milestone in terms of bringing that whole project together in the Minnehaha Greenway. So I really want to compliment and thank staff, especially Mike Heyman and others as well, for all the efforts they've done to get it to this point. As I think you've been informed already, the RFQ package is available on our website. And just as a reminder, any and all inquiries or questions about that are to be referred to Mike Heyman so that we have a consistent response to those types of things. Another milestone also dealing with Bowser happened yesterday morning when the the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District's 10-year watershed management plan update was considered by their board and approved by their board, and also strongly complimented by their board. And I think that we've talked about that in the past too, about especially Becky Christopher and other staff in terms of the excellent work they've done to bring that an innovative approach to doing a comprehensive plan forward. So that will come back before you for your final adoption on the 11th of January coming up. And also at the meeting, there's a grant application that was also awarded related to the work that we're doing along the Greenway at 325 Blake Road as well for the Clean Water Fund. And I wanted to, a little bit, I'll show the video that was put together as kind of speaking of milestones, reaching a 50-year anniversary in terms of what we've accomplished over the past 5 decades. Our education staff has worked with a video producer on a real cost-effective basis for all the work that he had done to put these together. It was a total cost of $2,500, and he's had a lot of background in producing educational videos, especially focused on water resource issues. And I wanted to show those, and I'll do that in a second, but just another milestone is that we had one of our first retirements, and I want to thank Craig Dawson for his time here at the district. He started as a temporary role to kind of establish our AIS program, and then for the past few years has been in a role as the director of our research and monitoring department. Just as a bit of a side note, he was recently appointed to serve on the advisory board of the Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center at the U of M. He'll do that as a private citizen, not as a representative of the watershed district, but it will be good to have a familiar face there as he continues different types of public service. With that, I'll hopefully be able to get to the video quickly here so that can be part of the meeting.
In the 1950s, the water quality of lakes and streams in the Twin Cities was getting worse. With rapid population growth and new construction, wetlands were drained. Areas that used to be grassland.
Where's our grandkids coming in?
Everybody's just gathered.
Yeah, we can just show it on the, it doesn't get quite the.
There we go.
There we go, thanks. Awesome, thank you. Saved me.
Land and forest were now pavement and concrete. This meant more flooding and pollution.
Water doesn't follow political or municipal boundaries. It really follows the watershed. And the legislature decided that it would make sense to create a special purpose local unit of government that would follow those hydrologic or watershed lines, but also give it authority. In 1967, when the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District was created, the flooding along Minnehaha Creek was a big concern and a big driver among all of the communities from Minnetonka, Hopkins, St. Louis Park, Edina, and Minneapolis. And the water quality of Lake Minnetonka was a big concern. People knew that there were flooding problems, and to really address the flooding along Minnehaha Creek, you needed to have outlet control at the outlet of Lake Minnetonka.
And creating a plan for that outlet structure was complicated. Using historical lake levels, the plan was designed to imitate natural conditions throughout the year and account for changing weather. Multiple local, state, and federal stakeholders were involved, including the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It took nearly 10 years to come up with a plan, but the effort has been successful. The Watershed District still uses this scientific model to manage water levels and to coordinate with the National Weather Service to protect communities from flooding. It's hard to imagine today, but until the mid-1980s, wastewater treatment plants discharged directly into Lake Minnetonka and its tributaries.
There were pipes dumping sanitary sewage into Lake Minnetonka at that time.
In 1971, 7 different plants were discharging not raw sewage, but water with high levels of phosphorus, which feeds algae and other problems. The quality of the water in the lake was at an all-time low. That's when a partnership formed to stop these discharges.
So the Watershed District was very much involved, along with the Lake Minnetonka Conservation District and the Metropolitan Council, in pushing to develop a sanitary sewer system that would treat that sewage rather than dump it into Lake Minnetonka.
Interceptors routed the flow to larger and more efficient central plants. The health of the lake saw an immediate improvement. We know this worked because of the thorough data the Watershed District collects on its waters. Since its beginnings, the district has based its work on data and sound science. This science-based approach is the foundation of all our projects. Today, the district is using a more comprehensive system to collect and analyze data about our waters. The new E-Grade program takes a more holistic view of water quality data and improves how the district identifies issues and creates solutions. The chain of lakes in Minneapolis are among the most visited natural resources in Minnesota. It's difficult to keep lakes, in the middle of a major metropolitan area, clean and healthy. Rainwater that drains to the lakes from surrounding streets, roofs, and lawns carries pollutants, including phosphorus. By the late 80s, swimming in the lakes was unpleasant, even risky. So a coalition called the Minneapolis Chain of Lakes Clean Water Partnership began one of the largest water quality improvement efforts in the nation.
It was one of the times where the Watershed District took a really strong leadership role, but also understood that to clean the water of the Minneapolis lakes, we really needed to work in partnership with others.
The partnership started with a rigorous scientific look at the problems. Ponds and wetlands were built to slow and clean stormwater before it reaches the lakes. Within a few years, measurable improvements in phosphorus levels and water clarity were visible in the chain of lakes. Residents helped with improved lawn care practices, reducing pesticides in stormwater runoff by 50%.
What we learned through that process was the art of negotiating effective cooperative agreements. It was the largest urban lake restoration program in the United States, and the Watershed District won a national award for it.
This spirit of partnership is a guiding principle of our work to bring the natural and built environments into balance across the watershed. The restoration of Minnehaha Creek at Methodist Hospital has become a model for the district's work across the watershed. By focusing long-term on this portion of the creek, residents receive lasting environmental, economic, and community benefits.
The focal geography approach means that we're going to concentrate our attention and our resources on specific, meaningful places.
In the mid-1900s, Minnehaha Creek in Hopkins and St. Louis Park was ditched and straightened to make way for new development. Years later, Methodist Hospital approached the Watershed District to expand its campus alongside the degraded waterway.
What if we partner together and create something that works for you and it works for us?
Through creative problem solving, a partnership formed to restore the creek and surrounding wetlands. The hospital built a boardwalk for all to enjoy.
So what we've learned from experience is that we can be much more effective if we get to know a place that's really important from a watershed perspective, but really work together with the local communities, the neighbors, the residents, the businesses in the area, and understand what their plans are.
The partnership continued with a flood prevention project that further enhanced the earlier creek restoration. In all of its work, the district learns the unique needs of its partners and designs an innovative solution that protects and improves the quality of water and the quality of life in our communities. From Minneapolis to Minnetrista, the 29 communities in the Minnehaha Creek watershed feature a wide range of land use, from urban to rural. The Watershed District helps address the unique needs of these landscapes by aligning its clean water work with the development goals of these communities.
We've learned that balanced urban ecology is really about working in partnership and appreciating that natural resources in this watershed are located right alongside the built environment. So the more we can be involved in the development of land use and integrating watershed planning into that process with partnerships, the more successful we'll be.
The Minnehaha Creek Greenway was created from the most degraded stretch of Minnehaha Creek in St. Louis Park and Hopkins. This landmark restoration includes new wetlands along a stream bed that meanders, trails and boardwalks that connect residents to green space and transit, a new park in Hopkins that has reduced crime, a business in St. Louis Park that expanded, creating jobs.
Balanced urban ecology is about recognizing that watershed projects are most successful when they're celebrated by communities alongside the benefits of economic development and improved transportation systems, because it's really this comprehensive approach to the built and natural environment where we'll be most successful.
The district's commitment to integrating water planning and land use will guide our next decade of work toward realizing this vision, a landscape of vibrant communities where the natural and built environments, in balance, create value and enjoyment.
So again, I want to thank the education communication staff for kind of helping to put some of those things together, and all of the series of events throughout this past year to highlight the 5 decades of impact that the district, and through your leadership over the last several years, has had in the communities we serve. And my last note is just with some upcoming holidays, the district offices will be closed on Monday, December 25th, and also on Monday, January 1st. And the next board meeting is on Thursday, January 11th. So with that, we can go on to the next item.
The next item is 12.2 is a district administrative performance review. I'm going to ask Mr. Smith to articulate the reason for a closed session, and then I'll ask for a motion from the board.
Madam President, it'd be appropriate to adopt a motion to authorize a closed session for the purposes of a performance evaluation of the administrator.
May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Manager Shackleton, second of Manager Rognus. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. There'll be Christmas bonus. Everyone's picture was in there.
You lose just the arm.
Seems like Lewis is getting a big bonus. It's the residuals.
We are back in open session. The meeting is adjourned.